Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here. Welcome to the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Joining us today, it is Austin Keeney. He writes, contributes for the folks at Wide Right and Natty Lite. Austin, we're glad to talk some Iowa State football. We're previewing Iowa State today. The last team that received a first place vote in the Big 12 poll. I'm not sure. Do you want to take a guess? Which Iowa State writer do you think it was, or media member that put the Cyclones with a first place vote this year?
That is a terrific question. I don't know who gets media votes. Maybe Randy Peterson from the Des Moines Register, just for fun. I don't know, the Cyclone Fanatic guys, maybe something like that. I promise, Wide Right does not have a Big 12 vote, so we did not make that happen.
So this team is you and I were talking before, ultimate wild card, right? What's really interesting is that this is kind of the position that we're used to having Matt Campbell in. He is the underdog this time around. They are the underdogs once again after really having a year where the expectations were very high and they did not meet them. They're kind of right back to where we always have been. This is kind of a team really that is in a lot of transition. Yeah, there's actually some really awesome pieces that stuck around, right? Xavier Hutchinson, Will McDonald, two of them we'll talk about. But for the most part, I mean, this team is going to be replacing so much. But I want to give you an analogy. Jamie Pollard yesterday was on the Big 12 radio show I work on for SiriusXM and said, it's like Christmas. You don't know what the presents are going to be under the Christmas tree. Do you feel like this is potentially Christmas and we don't know what the presents are going to be?
I mean, in the sense that it's an ultimate mystery. That's right. First off, Josh, thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be back. Always good to talk a little Iowa State football with you. Feels like this offseason has just been really long, and now we're finally feeling like it's time for football. So, I would describe Iowa State as the ultimate wild card, but in a weird way, if this makes sense, it's almost nice not to have all the expectations in the world on us. I do think that is where Matt Campbell thrives. I think that's where this program is a little bit better. I think if you ask anybody, are you really confident in anything that Iowa State is going to be this year? And they give you a firm answer, I probably wouldn't believe them, but I have a pretty good idea of what to expect. And it's just nice to be in that place where we're resetting expectations. And I know that's the big thing with Matt Campbell. Don't ask him, what do you expect the team to do? Or Brady Quinn might get mad if he doesn't say, I want to win the Big 12. But it's just kind of a great reset. We got a lot of young pieces that frankly have stuck around when they might have had opportunities to go elsewhere. We've got a couple of seniors that really stuck around when maybe they didn't have to, or they could have gone pro last year. I think that does speak to the strength of the culture and the program that Matt Campbell has built, that we'll talk about some specific guys, but Hunter Dekkers has been the heir apparent to Brock Purdy for a year and a half at least that we've known about, and he's had to wait a long time for his turn, but he's stuck around, and now he's going to be the starting quarterback.
Right, and that's kind of where a lot of this conversation starts. What is it about Hunter Dekkers that kind of makes has the belief there? Besides, we know he's got the arm talent, right? We know that is there. What is it that has people excited about what Hunter Dekkers can be for this offense?
Well, 6 months ago, I would have told you he was built like a Mack truck, but
right, he's lost some weight.
He's actually lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I think he's actually playing lighter than Brock Purdy did, which might be a good thing. We've seen him run around a little bit, and I'd say mobility, check. He's got it. Obviously, he's got a great arm. He got a little bit of seasoning too last year. He played a lot of that Oklahoma game after Brock Purdy got hurt. I know he didn't finish it, and honestly, he looked like a freshman when he was out there, but he's experienced some high-level Big 12 defenses, and he's been on the field. So I think there's an idea of, hey, he got a little bit of an opportunity to play. He's obviously got the arm talent. He's got some pretty good guys to work with too, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you think about, are we calling Jared Russ a fullback or are we calling him a tight end? What are we doing on this one?
He's a fullback. I mean, Jared Russ is a fullback name.
It is a fullback name, and he was first team all Big 10 or Big 12 fullback. Yeah. I actually don't even know who else we could have submitted for that award. So he kind of de facto got it.
The Russ bust too. I think he's caught 2 or 3 passes in his entire career. So he's a fullback.
Right. Right. The H back, I guess. Right. Is that kind of the fair way to put it? Blocking H back.
Sure. He could be an H back.
So obviously he comes back, and then Xavier Hutchinson is the one guy that we have to mention. I mean, were you surprised at his decision to come back and spend one more year in Ames?
I'm not necessarily surprised that he decided to come back, just because I don't know what his NFL future would look like immediately. But he's coming back as a guy. It's kind of crazy when you look at the Iowa State receiver record books. He's already in like the top 5 in career catches and yards. Right. And with another big year this year, I think he's like 100 receptions behind Allen Lazard. Like, it's not unreasonable that he might be able to break the career receptions record. So, yeah, I think this is the year. Like, he's the unquestioned guy. We had those tight ends there the last couple of years, and obviously Breece Hall that took up a lot of the attention on the offense. And this is going to be Hutch's chance to really ball out as the number one option on the offense.
Yeah, and I mean, got close to 1,000 yards last year. And I think we usually think about tight ends being safety blankets, right? I mean, do you think he's going to be the safety blanket this year just because of the experience?
Well, yeah, and I think this is maybe a little bit of the difference between Deckers and Purdy. Brock Purdy was like, I'm not sure what the analogy would be, where like we had to run every play perfectly. And Brock Purdy was really good at what he did, but we would pick up yards, 5-6 yards at a time. And Hutchinson was really good at running those short routes and getting open. Hunter Deckers has a little bit of a stronger arm, I think, and is going to give us the ability to push the ball down the field, which in theory would give Hutchinson just a lot more room to show off his skill set, his route tree, and even more room to work under the field, or, in the middle of the field. I'd say he's definitely going to be the safety blanket just because he's got the experience, and our tight ends are a little bit inexperienced coming into this year.
Yeah, I mean, the other guy that you're looking at really is Jalen Noel, right? I mean, Noel or Noel? How is that?
Noel, yeah.
Noel.
Jalen Noel.
Yeah. I mean, that's the guy that you really look at that is the other kind of main weapon, because obviously the two tight ends, I mean, with Kolar and Allen both being gone, there's a big hole to be filled right there. And it really is going to be both those guys. But what's going to be the situation at tight end this year? Because it's such a big part of their offense.
Yeah, and I'm really curious how much of a part of the offense it's going to be this year. I think schematically things might look a little bit different, where maybe we don't have two tight ends on the field all the time. Easton Dean is a name that we've heard. I think he actually came to Iowa State as a quarterback, and he's playing. This is like his second or third year playing tight end. He played a little bit last year, but again, a really inexperienced kid. Tyler Moore is the other one, a local Iowan who is, I believe he's a redshirt freshman too. So not a lot of experience on the field. Maybe Russ will line up at tight end a little bit more. I really don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if we actually tailor our offense a little bit more to the personnel that we have. And maybe we don't have two tight ends or three tight ends on the field all the time.
Let's talk about the personnel that they have. I mean, the running back room, it's so funny. I've done this twice now. Oh, 3 times now. We talk about Brock Purdy getting replaced, talk about the tight ends being replaced, now talking about the running backs, the running back being replaced. I mean, there are a couple times, Austin, where I just said, look, it was an honor and a pleasure to watch Breece Hall play. Like, it really was. I mean, I'm going to say the same thing about Deuce Vaughn when he's gone. These guys who are for you, probably not.
Yeah,
right?
Not for me.
Not for you, but for me, as somebody who's a fan of the whole league, I will say that. I think he's gonna have a great NFL career. He was such a complete player. I mean, that streak, it just shows he's such a complete player. He was able to really do everything for Iowa State. It was just so consistent, a position where it's hard to be consistent because of how many hits you take. What does this running back room look like now? You've got Jairell Brock, obviously. You got in there, and then Eli Sanders, a talented freshman's coming in. I mean, what is the rotation going to look like for them at running back?
Yeah, that's the ultimate mystery. This does remind me a lot of 2019 when Brock and Breece Hall came in as freshmen, where we actually had a couple of older guys who started. Like, it was about the 4th or 5th game of the year when Breece Hall really took over as the starting running back during that season. So I would anticipate that it's going to be Jairell Brock at the start. And if you want to talk about like culture guys, Gyro Brock, I think he came in as even like a higher touted recruit than Brees Hall. And once Brees took that backfield over, Gyro, I mean, he probably had 20 offers. He could have gone anywhere else and got carries, but he decided to stick around, and he's still at Iowa State. It wouldn't surprise me if he really seizes control and has a really good year. But I think the thing with Matt Campbell and running backs, we have options. You mentioned Eli Sanders. Deion Silas played a little bit. He's like he might be even smaller than Deuce Vaughn, if that's possible. He's a like a little pinball. And then keep hearing this name, Cartavius Norton, who's a true freshman. Apparently he's been really good at camp. I don't know if he's going to play. I think that's the rumor that is starting to get thrown around there, is maybe we'll see a little bit of him too. So I don't know who's actually going to take control. I would say Gyro Brock is your best bet, at least to start the season, and we'll see how he looks. But he's got a lot of talent, and he's a great culture fit. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get more opportunity.
The offensive line is actually the one spot of the offense where there's some continuity, right? 3 returning starters, I believe, at least, and it's going to be the interior of the offensive line.
Yeah. Downing, he's the guy. I think he's the first team all-conference center. Is another local kid. I know one of our guys, Jared Larson, loves this guy because he's from Creston and he works for the Creston newspaper. So shout out Creston, Iowa. Downing's played a lot of football for Iowa State. He's a stud. And, hopefully that is where the strength of the offense lies. We've had some troubles up front, but having a really solid interior, I think, is a pretty good place to start, especially when you're trying to break in a new quarterback.
So would you say that that's going to be the strength of this offense this year, is going to be the offensive line?
I would say, I don't know if pass catchers, is that a cop out?
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
Hutchinson and Noel, and then we've got other guys who I think have a lot of potential. We just haven't really seen them on the field yet. And then, the interior of the offensive line. I think if you're going to pinpoint those two strengths, that's probably where you would start. But again, we're kind of a mystery. So who knows? Maybe our tight ends will be awesome, or maybe, one of our running backs will be awesome too.
Well, I think it just kind of speaks like what we're talking about with the Matt Campbell thing. I mean, I want to say definitively that, hey, you know what? It's fine. It could be a 4-8, 5-7 year because of rebuilding, but it's Matt Campbell, so you kind of expect them to develop the kids, and like the kids kind of like they're going to be getting better at a pace they should be getting better at. You know what I mean? They kind of should be leaning on each other and making stuff happen.
Well, that's the crazy thing. If you think about program expectations for Iowa State 5 years ago, if we had this senior class, we would be thinking, man, we better get to a bowl game this year because next year the cover is going to be completely bare and we're looking at winning 2 or 3 games.
Right.
With Matt Campbell and the way the program is developed, we're looking at this year as, 6 wins is 100% within reach, even replacing all those guys.
Yeah, I actually went through the schedule, and we'll do that in a little bit here, but I found 6. That was kind of the number that I landed at. Let's talk defense.
Let's do it.
So this defense last year, in terms of national ranks, 20th scoring, 21st against the rush, 11th against the pass, 9th total. A little bit down more in some of the more advanced stuff. 37th in efficiency, so still top 40, which is pretty good. 21st in allowing explosive plays, which is really good. 39th in allowing finished drives, so top 40, and having drives being finished off. And also part of that is the offense putting you in a bad spot, and there were some games where the offense did do that.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they return. The nice thing is they return 3 guys in this defense, one kind of at each level that like you really like, right? McDonald, Orion Vance, and Anthony Johnson at safety. Those are kind of your 3, but there's a whole lot of who knows everywhere in between.
Well, that's kind of the great thing is you've got like that one anchor who at each level of the defense. Well, and like Gary Vaughn is another linebacker who's played a lot. Obviously, you mentioned Orion Vance. Isaiah Lee has played a lot on the interior of the defensive line to go along with Will McDonald. Guys that aren't household names, but like the 2 diehards know who they are, and they're looking for their opportunity to step up, honestly. And I'm not going to say I'm like looking forward to seeing what the defense looks like without Mike Rose out there or something like that, but again, the cupboard's not bare. We're kind of a mystery. Who knows what we're going to be? But there's talent there.
The one thing that's interesting is Will McDonald coming back, just because he's I mean, you kind of wonder about what it's going to look like for him at the next level, right? He's a little undersized, I guess you could say. I mean, he's still pretty big. He's a pretty big guy. Like, he's not, I mean, he's like 6'4", 245, which is like crazy that we're saying he's a little undersized. But I mean, in the NFL, we talk about edge rushers. We're talking about some guys who are just a little bit, the Myles Garrett's of the world, the Chase Youngs of the world. I mean, even in our own conference, talking about, guys like Felix Anudike-Uzomah. He's not quite like that, but I mean, he is for sure first team. He's a great college pass rusher, really, is what I'm trying to say, right? And that's kind of what his bill is, and it makes sense he's coming back because it's one more year to kind of work on maybe some stuff that'll actually help him maybe be excel at the next level.
Yeah, you're not going to hear me making this comp like, oh, he's definitely going to be like this guy, but he is getting very close to Von Miller's career sack record for the Big 12, and Von Miller's not exactly a mountain of a man, but he's so dang quick at getting around offensive linemen. I think Will McDonald is really good at drawing holding penalties as well. So it's like so hard to get your hands on him. He's so quick. If you do grab him, you're probably going to hold him. And yeah, he's going to go break that career sack record this year, fingers crossed, as long as he stays healthy and everything. So he's a true blue, like awesome college defensive player. And if he has another good year, he should probably be the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year or a front runner for the award.
Yeah, I mean, they're the guys I was thinking about this year was him. It was Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who he's the same. I think he's around the same height, but he's a little bigger and he's a little faster. I think than Will McDonald is. And then Siaki Ika on the inside for me was the other guy that he's the one I actually ended up putting because the big fellows in the middle don't get enough respect. But McDonald's going to be the anchor for this defense. But Orion Vance is a guy with a ton of playing experience, and I mean, he's gonna have to fit in that middle linebacker role and just kind of like be the kind of the quarterback of the defense, right? I mean, pass rushers can only do so much for you at that point, kind of captaining the defense because their job is very singular, right? Orion Vance is going to have to be the guy kind of stepping in to fill the roles of Mike Rose, fill the shoes of Mike Rose, correct?
Yeah, you just got to lean on that experience. I think this is his 5th year in the program. He's had some big moments for Iowa State. Like he was the defensive MVP of the Fiesta Bowl a couple of years ago. So, I mean, he's a plenty capable player. Again, around the Big 12 and especially around the country, you probably don't know who Orion Vance is. But if you're an Iowa State fan, you know who Orion Vance is.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, this is his opportunity. He's going to step up and be, kind of the defensive anchor.
And then the secondary, do you have concerns about this? Because the group it's going to be a hodgepodge.
It's interesting. Honestly, if you're going to ask me, like, what's the strength of the defense, which maybe we're going to get to that, you'd probably start the defensive line.
Go ahead. Go ahead. So this is the strength of the defense?
The secondary, I think, could be really good. You mentioned Anthony Johnson. He's an all Big 12 defensive player. Bo Freiler, like Aisheem Young was a starter for 2 years and then he transferred to Ole Miss. Bo Freiler was starting to take his spot and was probably going to be starting this year anyway. It kind of stinks to lose that depth, but I think our safeties should be really good. TJ Tampa is another name that, he played a lot last year as a corner. He actually came into Iowa State as a wide receiver, so he's kind of learning how to play defense. He's one of these like really long corners. I think it's like 6'2" or 6'3" or something like that. So again, if you're trying to identify strengths, you look at least 3 guys who played a lot of football last year who had some pretty good moments. So I don't know. That's probably where the ultimate mystery is, What is the defense going to look like? Because you think about John Heacock has been around for a long time. There were maybe some rumors out there that he could be, close to retirement or whatnot. He's back, and I'm just going to trust the infrastructure of John Heacock and that defense that everybody from like Clemson to the New England Patriots went and copied to try and slow down the spread.
And everybody in between. I mean, that defense, it is the most copied modern defense, right? Yep. It's like not even close. Let's talk about the schedule. All right. So I like it. Like, I don't think it's a bad schedule at all. Your road games are at Iowa, at Kansas, at Texas, at Oklahoma State, and at TCU. So those are difficult, but here's what I'll say. Like for a team like Iowa State, it's almost better off to have the really tough ones on the road just to be like, you know what? It's an L, right? Functionally speaking, it's an L.
Although I do my big surprise or my big hot take is we're going to beat Texas on the road this year.
So everybody wants a piece of this. Everybody wants a piece of Texas this year. Everybody's selling them pretty low.
We're going for 4 in a row against Texas this year.
Yes, so. That is one thing that could happen. The one I'm interested in is the Iowa game, because if there were ever it's like, you know, this happens in sports all the time. There's ever a year where it was like, oh my God, they actually did it. Like this would be the year, right? It's the year where nobody sees it coming.
Maybe the Final Road special,
right?
Lose to an FCS school and then go beat Iowa out of nowhere and go like 2-10.
It's the year where there's no expectations, where you're not playing them at home, where you have to go on, you have to go play them there. And actually, I think, people think Iowa's be pretty good this year. This would kind of be like the year to do it, which I think is really interesting. So I went through it all, Austin. I have them at 6-6.
Okay.
I have Iowa as a loss. I have Baylor. The Baylor one at home is nice to have. That one they could win. I think they could win that one.
If I could just appeal to Brett Yormark, can we get Baylor to come to Ames in November for once? Can we get them like on a cold Saturday instead of playing them earlier in the year every single year?
That's where it's going to be kind of, it could be, well, it's September 24th, so it shouldn't be like blazing hot, right? I mean, it should be,
It'll probably be plenty warm.
The thing is, I guess that does favor Baylor more than anybody else, right? It's kind of like, they're a Texas-based team, so I guess, that is advantage them.
Last year was a gift getting Texas at home in November. We don't normally get those.
Can I give you 2 swing games? I think the 2 swing games here. Kansas State, so Farmageddon at home, and TCU on the road.
Okay.
If you split those, I got you at 6-6.
Yep. Sense.
That's where I'm at. I think Kansas State's going to be it has a chance to be really, really good this year, because they're honestly the most well-balanced team in the Big 12. I'm not sure how much full on depth they have, but they're really balanced. It's totally dependent on how well their quarterback plays. What are your swing games? What are your thoughts about this schedule? Where do you see? What's your prediction?
Well, I actually think you and I feel almost exactly the same about the schedule. I think the swing games are West Virginia, Texas Tech, Kansas State, absolutely, and then Texas. So 3 of those 4 games are at home. Last year, we lost to Texas Tech on a 62-yard field goal on the last play of the game.
Yes.
On the road. We had our worst defensive effort of the year at West Virginia on the road, and we lost on a Breece Hall fumble on the goal line where we couldn't get a good look at if he was in the end zone or not. I don't know.
Yeah, that was tough.
Those were toss-ups last year, and those were road games. I think knowing how close we were to beating those 2 teams and the fact that we get them at home this year, I'm really looking at those as games that are going to make or break the team. Like I said, I threw out the Texas one out there. I just think we have their number. So I've got us at 7-5 with that Texas win in there. If we don't get that 6-6, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I am not going to say they're going to beat Iowa. I will never predict a win over Iowa until I actually see it happen. So I don't want to dwell on that for too long. Also, SEMO, Southeast Missouri State. I can almost guarantee that we will be in a close game in the third quarter, and everybody is going to be freaking out.
All right, so as somebody who went to the University of Missouri, actually did see a decent amount of SEMO. I think they put them twice in the 5 years that I was there for 4.5 years, so 5 football seasons. I think this is. I'm not sure that you have to worry about that one. I know the PTSD that Iowa State fans have with the FCS teams. I get it. But I don't think you have to worry about it.
I'm expecting like a fumble 6 or something, and SEMO's up like 7-6 at halftime. Just something stupid like that, because that's how these FCS games work for Iowa State.
One last question before you get out of here. I'm going to ask you here on this. Will you be watching the Field of Dreams game between your Cubs and the Reds? I mean, they gave us a real treat for this one, didn't they?
I don't want to support Tom Ricketts in any way possible. I feel like
I had to ask because I know you have the W flag that you fly very proudly behind you.
I was looking up like how do you perform a citizen's arrest if I was going to be in Dyersville. I'm kidding, but like I will watch the game because what else am I going to watch? But man, do I not like the idea of supporting Tom Ricketts in anything. He needs to sell the Cubs like now.
Yeah, I just asked that also because the Cubs are playing the team that I cover for Locked On as well, the Washington Nationals. I do Locked On Nationals. So the Nationals are winning, surprisingly. So there you go. All right, Austin, where can people find you and your work and all of its variety?
Yeah, you can find us at widerightnattylite.com. My podcast is the Litecast. It's on the Wide Right, I believe it's the Wide Right Natty Light Podcast Network, and you can find that on Spotify, Amazon, wherever. Going through a series right now where I'm ranking the top 10 wins of the Matt Campbell era. Pulled all our writers for it. It's been a lot of fun. So, not a spoiler alert. Just stay tuned. I guess by the end of this week, we'll have revealed the number one win of the last 6 years. We've had some good ones to choose from.
Yeah, plenty of great wins to choose from. All right, Austin Keeney, Wide Right, and Natty Light. Thank you for helping us preview Iowa State, and we'll talk to you soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me.